Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time that you have come across this video. My name is Maxwell Uduapeme. In one of my previous videos, I presented to you what experimental studies are and especially how to carry out a quasi-experimental study. Today, I want to show you a practical example of how an experimental study was carried out by a research student, which, by the way, is my very self, during the course of my master's degree back in 2012. Between 2012 and 2015, I did a study. I'm going to show you that study. I'll walk you through in a step-by-step fashion how that study was carried out. Come along with me. Let's jump right in. Welcome to this presentation. Like I said, is an example of how a quasi-experimental study can be carried out, or how it was carried out. And in my study, as you can see, the study was titled Comparative Effects of Scaffolding and Collaborative Instructional Approaches on Secondary School Students' Cognitive and Psychomotor Achievement in Basic Electronics in North Central Nigeria. All right, so the background of the study, I will not bore you with much of the information about that because that's not the main crux of the matter. But I define what basic electronics is. I presented also what constructivist instructional approaches, or CIA, means, and I gave examples of such constructivist instructional approaches, which included these ones that you have on your screen. And then I went ahead to talk about what collaborative instructional approach is, and then also what scaffolding instructional approach is. I want to just move quickly over all of this stuff because these are not the main crux of the matter. I also discuss cognitive achievement, psychomotor achievement, gender, and then I presented the statement of the problem. So I'll go over straight to the research methodology, because that's where we can really grasp what the study is about and how it was carried out. Basically, if you look at the hypotheses that we have here, we have 6 of them. The first one, which is the only one I'm going to talk about, says that there is no significant difference between the mean scores of students in basic electronics cognitive achievement test when taught using collaborative instructional approach and those taught with scaffolding instructional approach. Let me talk briefly about the scope of the study. The study was focused upon finding out which of scaffolding or collaborative instructional approaches is more effective in teaching basic electronics. So, and then the group of students that were involved in this study were SS2 students. SS2 students are in their second year of the senior class in the Nigerian curriculum setting. Now, this is where we are going. Research design. Now, to carry out a quasi-experimental study, you specifically, if you remember, one of the examples that were mentioned was that there is a non-equivalent control group design type of quasi-experimental study. So this is the design that was employed by this study. All right. So the research design in a diagrammatic form, you can see that EGA means experimental group A, and then EGB means experimental group B. O1, O2 means observation, or let's say first observation, while O2 means second observation. The first circle is the intervention, all right, which is the treatment given. So the first one is treatment using collaborative instructional approaches. approach, beg your pardon, and the second one is treatment using scaffolding. The area of the study may not be that of importance to you, but if you must know, it's already captured in the title, which is the North Central Zone. I will not waste too much of time on that. The population of the study comprised of 8 secondary schools. I wouldn't be wasting too much of time on that. So this is the list of the schools that were involved in this study. And then the sampling technique was basically 3 sampling techniques were used. We had, 2 sampling techniques were used. This thing has taken place for some time now. Now, there is a purposive sampling technique. You need to find out about that because that's not what we are dealing with. And then the simple random sampling technique. The criteria for selection are included here, and the breakdown of the schools that were involved in the study, as you can see them, you have them here. Now, the instrumentation for the research included 3 basic instruments. The first was the cognitive achievement test, BCAT, and the second is the psychomotor achievement test, BPAT. And we also had lesson plans. These were all the instruments that were used. These were validated by relevant and qualified, experts before they were put to use. Now, reliability of the instrument. This is one of the things that you must bear in mind. As you know, for a multiple choice test, which the BCAT, which is the cognitive achievement test, was designed along with, we use we use KR20 formula to determine the reliability. And the indices you can see is between 0.2 and 0.8. All the we also went ahead to do establish the psychometric properties of the test. So we dealt with difficulty study, which was most of the items or all of the items used were between 0.2 and 0.8. And we also checked the items for discrimination indices, which found out that most of the items had their discrimination indices of 20 or higher. Also, the items were also determined to be good because, as I mentioned earlier, the Kuda-Richardson 20 formula was used to determine the reliability coefficient of the cognitive achievement, whereas the Spearman-Rowe correlation coefficient were used to determine the coefficient, the reliability coefficient of the psychomotor test. The conditionalities for doing all of this are spelled out in books, in research materials. Some of them, I will share the link to them in the link to this video. You can check them out. So the reliability of the 2 instruments for data collection were fairly good. One was 0.94 and the other was 0.83. Okay, so I will, as you will find out along the line while I'm waiting for the computer to bounce back. I don't know what stopped it, but the issue was that the test, BCAT and BPAT, were administered on the 2 groups, both the group A and group B, prior to the use of prior to the introduction of the treatment. And the scores that the students were able to achieve were collected and kept in the custody of the researcher. After this time, treatments were introduced. For group A, scaffolding instructional approach was used to treat them, and group B, collaborative instructional approach was used to treat them. Then this lasted for a period of about 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, the same test that was administered in the first observation, this is now second observation, was administered on them. However, the items of the test were juxtaposed so that the students will not easily recognize that they were the same tests or same items that they had been exposed to previously. Okay, So the experimental procedure, like I said, the whole test took 8 weeks. The first week, the pre-test was administered, and this was followed by a 6 weeks period of treatment. And then after the 6 weeks, the last week, the second test, which is essentially the first test, as I explained earlier, was administered. And this is called post test. Now, in the course of this experimental activity, some steps were taken to checkmate extraneous variables. And these extraneous variables, all right, so there were some measures that were put in place to ensure that the experiment is as valid as much as it can be, and that is to control for influence or influences of extraneous variables. The effects of them being Horton effects, that is the effect that will make students either to perform poorly or perform extremely better just because they know that they are under observation. In order to control for that, what we did was to use the students' regular teachers. And then the second thing was to take a step against pre-test sensitization. And how we controlled for that was to retrieve all the pre-test questions and papers from the students in the first place. Secondly, rearranging them in such a way that they cannot easily be recognized by the students as what they have seen previously. Then, of course, there is the extraneous variable of initial group difference. To control for this, we used the analysis of covariance. And you remember in my previous video, I mentioned to you that ANCOVA is a yes tool that you need as far as conducting quasi-experimental studies are concerned. All right, so the last but not the least, there is also what we call subject interaction. In order for subjects, the test subjects, now I'm talking about the students themselves, in order for them not to have impact on one another, inter-classes for schools were used. Take for instance, if school A was to be treated with scaffolding instructional approach, the whole school, all the students offering this subject in that school went through this treatment. So there was no case whereby class 1, class 2 inside the same school were treated with different teaching approaches. That helped in containing and controlling subject interaction. So these are the things that were done, and the remaining step is just the data analysis part of it that was done. There we have main statistics, which were used to answer research questions, and also ANCOVA, that is analysis of covariance, as I mentioned earlier. And this is because covariance or pretest scores are involved in this study, and in order to control for initial group difference, ANCOVA is your best bet. And so this is a sample of the results that we got. The pretest scores for experimental group A and of B are on the screen, and as you can see, the mean gain of experimental group A, which received treatment. Thanks for watching. Until I come your way again in the next video, please support me by subscribing to this channel, share with your friends and family, and let me know what you think.